Kevin and Roman, they got the game. Customer success is their claim to fame. On the podcast, they light the spark, elevating your skills, creating a mark. Let's dive deeper into the playbook, the secrets they share. No need to look from onboarding to retention. They've got it all. Success is the goal.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Customer Success Playbook podcast. I'm Roman Trebon, and with me always is my co-host, Kevin Metzger. Kevin, happy belated Father's Day. How was your weekend?
Yeah, it was a great weekend. Love Father's Day. Roman, I did some stuff in the past with a project called the Advocate Project. So it's a special weekend always to kind of see dads celebrate. So
yeah, it's awesome. We went out paintball, my first time ever doing paintball. It was awesome. And I'll tell you what, there was something therapeutic about spraying the kids with a little paintball action. So hopefully it doesn't give me any dings for being a dad, but it was a fun time out there and enjoyed it. So
yeah, we didn't get to introduce you yet, but how about you? How was your Father's Day? I saw you kind of post out on LinkedIn with your girls.
Yeah, I'm a dad of 4 girls. None are teenagers yet. I have a 12-year-old all the way down to 5-year-old. So I haven't hit the gauntlet years. But I was spoiled. We went to go see the movie Inside Out 2. Very timely because this morning I dropped my daughter off at her first summer camp.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that movie's about a girl that's about 12, 13 years old going to her first summer camp. The anxiety that kind of builds in kids that age of wanting to fit in. And it was an awesome way to celebrate Father's Day.
Oh, that's great.
That's
on my movie to-do list to watch. It did blockbuster numbers I read this morning over the weekend. So I don't think you guys were the only 4 that went out and saw it this weekend.
Yeah. I went to on Friday night with 2 of the 3 kids. So
cool.
That's awesome. Well, we already sort of got the guest already lined up. So let's kind of get into it. Kev, we got, you lined up a great guest. We have Peter Ord, the founder and CEO of GuideCX. You want to kind of talk, Kev, what we're going to dive into today?
Yeah, we're excited. So GuideCX is a solution that helps organizations solve the number one cause of churn, basically bad implementations. And we're excited to learn more. Peter, do you want to go ahead and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and how GuideCX got started?
Yeah. So personally, I already told you my name is Peter, father of 4 girls. I also have an incredible wife that's going through this journey with me of building a company. They say that the best companies are built off the founder's greatest frustrations. And one of my biggest frustrations was after I sold a product or service not being kept on the same page. And that obviously can happen in a variety of different use cases. My previous company, we built a technology product for the automotive space. And car dealers are typically a user that's very hard to engage. There's a lot of moving parts. Their job isn't to implement a new piece of software. Their job is to sell the next car, or to move cars on the lot, or go to the auction and buy cars for their inventory. And so, lots of different, things pulling them in different directions. And I always thought that it was just in the automotive space, the kind of specifically the SaaS products that sold into the automotive space that had this challenge of keeping customers on the same page during the implementation process. But Vista Private Equity acquired that company that I worked at. I got exposed to a number of their portfolio companies, and quickly found out that, wow, this is a problem that kind of expands across multiple different use cases and not just SaaS. And so the pain got big enough and frustrating enough to where I decided to jump ship in 2017. And now it's 7 years later, and we're still in business. We're still growing. We raised a few rounds of funding, and we're doing awesome. So yeah, it's fun. Grateful that other people have had this frustration.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's definitely something like that hits everybody. And I don't care where you are, part of the transition from sales process to implementation, you always end up with communication issues there. Yeah, it's definitely, and I don't care whether it's a professional services type company that you're doing, or whether it's a SaaS product where you're implementing, you still have those miscommunications or expectations that are set during the sales process that don't get communicated. So how do you guys help with that?
Yeah, I kind of look back, take a step back and look how the consumer's changed in the last 10, 15 years. We are catered to with great brands. Like Amazon tells me where my package is at any given minute of any given day. And that's why I don't blow up Jeff Bezos when my package is late. I don't panic. I have transparency. Delta, like I noticed the other day when I boarded a plane, it told me that my bag had just successfully been boarded on the plane with me. And I thought to myself, wow, like that probably replaced thousands of phone calls into their support queue due to people worried about tight connections or late check-ins or what have you. And Delta solves that problem with a transparent tracker, if you will. It's almost like the best companies in the world are doing things so that customers don't have to call them for simple information. And so that is changing the expectations of the modern day consumer. And unfortunately, when you jump into the B2B space, oftentimes like those B2C expectations come with the people buying B2B software, and they expect to be treated in a similar fashion. And when they don't, they panic. When they're left in the dark, they assume the worst. And so I think, kind of going back to your question, I think there's some interesting like neurological, ways in which customers, behave differently today than they would otherwise 10, 15 years ago. Like people were okay getting sent a weekly spreadsheet back in the day, but times have changed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think in that B2B space, like Peter, like you talked about, it's so different, right? At least I see these very long sales cycles. There's tons of different people involved in the buying process. There's, like you said, Amazon, I just go on Amazon on my phone, buy something, and it is what it is. There's not a lot of other decision makers I need to loop in, right? I don't need to build a business case for the new back scratcher I buy or whatever, right? But these big softwares, there's so many people involved. And then when you buy it, I think that, neurologically, you're like, oh my goodness, I've now made this big investment. What happens now, right? Did I make the right choice? And if you don't have that sort of smooth, handoff and onboarding process, the buyer gets nervous. The project can go off on the wrong rails. But we talked about some of the challenges, Peter, and you mentioned as someone that did onboarding, the challenges you faced, and I'm sure you're working with a ton of clients today that have challenges. What are some of the common challenges that your clients are running up against as far as that onboarding experience?
Yeah, I think the two ones that come to mind are not just training someone on a product or how to use a product, but the change management that's required in order to, execute or extract value out of that product. It's like gone are the days of teaching people how to push buttons and perform an action in a solution. We have automated digital onboarding that can kind of do that. And we have wizard, type products that can do that for the users. Where the real value comes in is managing what behavior needs to change in order to create win-wins. Now, the second thing that comes to mind in order to assist with that is helping your champion do just that. Like it's almost like you have to help them manage the people that you don't manage, which are the users. And that's why every project or most projects fail. Turns out it's really hard to manage people you don't manage, right? To get people to do things that you don't pay on a bi-monthly basis. There's no incentive. And so you have to use your champion at your customer in a way to enable that person to manage on their side. You have to arm them with tools and processes and workflows in order to help them, get everyone else on the same page on their side. And there's different strategies to employ. Some best practices include, creating personas within your implementation experience, like customer personas. So you can, thoughtfully and eloquently help the customer, the champion, know that, hey, we're going to need someone that knows how to model data. We're going to need someone that can sign contracts. We're going to need someone that, knows how to build APIs. Like you can create all different personas that kind of match to your customer experience. But if you don't create those personas, your champion's not going to know who to involve on their side. And so we've operationalized that process in our product, where when you spin up a project, it kind of tells the champion, hey, these are the people we need from your organization. Who are they? And then that auto assigns them all the tasks attached to those personas. And then there's kind of a cool little UI and UX that engage those users and give them specific views. Some don't need a whole project view. Some just need views to their tasks only. While others need more visibility into more of a digest view. There's all sorts of science behind that. But the interesting data that backs up kind of enabling your customers to self-serve more, like almost giving them homework assignments in bite-sized chunks through a product like GuideCX. The thing that we've noticed is when you assign customers tasks in our system, we find, and we analyze kind of when these tasks are completed, 72% of those tasks are completed after hours. Meaning that like a customer, if you're asking a customer to do something, we find in our system, 72% of the time, they don't do that until after their normal day job. Because they're, just like my last example, they're buying cars at the auction, they're selling cars during the day, they're doing their normal job that doesn't involve implementing your software or your service. And so it's critical to enable them with all the information they need in order to help you or help them help you during any time in any day.
So
it's interesting.
I have a question about that. And it has to do with how you're getting the data into your software, I guess. But is it an update that's occurring that happens after hours that, hey, I'm going back and updating my status, but maybe the work was done during hours? Or are you able to tell if the work's being done after hours as well?
So yeah, we measure it by, we have different statuses a task has, and with the ultimate final task being done. And one of the things that helps our customers kind of analyze the speed of completion of those tasks is almost creating a repeatable process of what they're asking their customers to do. Most companies do a really good job outlining, hey, these are all the things we do internally every time we onboard a customer or go through an implementation workflow. But externally, they leave it up to the project manager to follow up with that customer in different ways, to send them updates in different ways, to chase information differently. And what you end up with is, if you have 40 project managers, you're offering 40 different external customer experiences. And so when you operationalize that external experience, you standardize it, then it becomes measurable. If it becomes measurable, then you can start to optimize it. And that's when our customers get maniacal around like, hey, which tasks that we're asking our customers to do across thousands of projects end up being the bottlenecks? Which tasks end up having our customer having to involve more than one person to do those things? And so the analytics and reporting is kind of the gas, the combustion engine that helps our customers iterate on the process to decrease that time to value.
I think you hit on something, Peter, that, I like, the resources needed on a onboarding, right? And what we find is, you have a project manager that maybe has a portion dedicated to like getting a solution on, but then there's all these other people that, like you said, it's not their day job, right? So it's like, hey, we need you to build these APIs. We need you to do this. We need you to do this, right? And then even on our side, right, our sales team from an onboarding like our handoff. So for your system, for GuideCX, you must have a lot of people that are potentially getting into the system or using output from the system, right? So you probably have your sales team could be potentially in there, professional services, just on the team selling the software, and then all the people at the client side. So how does that sort of work? What do you find? I'm interested what your clients experience. Do a lot of people go get into the system themselves? Do you typically see they just want that task list that gives them what they need to do sent to them, and they don't maybe go into the system as much? I'm curious how that works. I mention it because we have a system, and we thought like, oh, we'll give everyone access to the system, and we found out a lot of people didn't want to learn a new system. They just kind of wanted to do the tasks that were assigned to them and let the project manager kind of make these status updates. Curious how you guys handle that.
Yeah, one of our product vision statements is we work where you work. And so there's certain people that maybe want their tasks communicated to them through their own Slack channel. Maybe they just want a text message whenever it's their turn to do something. Or maybe we need to connect to another, project management solution that's being used by a third party that we're trying to engage in the product that won't use GuideCX, but that they use the Trello instance. And so we've spent a lot of time, effort, and money to work nicely in this ecosystem of tons of products that our customers use. So much so that we don't care whether or not they're in GuideCX or they're not in GuideCX. We just care about the deliverable being completed and in a timely manner. And so we work where you work, and we even measure the more people involved in a project experience, the sweet spot across our data. So we just did like a big data study across 300,000 projects. I highlighted this at Pulse. One of the biggest indicators of a successful project experience, of an on-time delivery project experience, is when you involve 5 or more people on the customer side in the process. So Roman, you just mentioned like, hey, if sales is involved, like who's the first person that gets called when there's a rocky situation, right? The guy that sells the product. But oftentimes the customer calls the salesman, and the salesman says, well, listen, I don't have all the information in front of me. I got to hang up the phone. Let me call you back. Whereas with GuideCX, right, they have a dashboard view of all the products they sold, where they're at in the process, who the bottlenecks are, what we asked their team to do last week, what they did this week. And so they can answer all those questions in the moment. Oftentimes, like, there's 3 things that frustrated me at my old job that we couldn't answer eloquently. It's when customers would call us and ask, when are we going live? Who's responsible for what? And then the last one is, what did I buy? And that was kind of an interesting one, because this check signer oftentimes removes themselves from the implementation experience and assigns you a customer side team to work with. Well, if you don't involve the check signer in the project, you lose all that intrinsic accountability. And so if the check signer isn't one of those 5 people, then you're kind of nipping yourself in the butt, because now all of a sudden you don't have like that notification going to the stakeholder saying, hey, this is what we asked of your team. This is what they did. And this is what they didn't do this week. And this is how it affects the delivery date. And so just like I'm not frustrated with when Amazon tells me my package is late, I'm not frustrated because I know it's late. Like with GuideCX, you know that you're going to be late. So the more people you involve in that project experience from the customer side, the more intrinsic accountability you're going to create in the project experience. And the less you're going to have to be the bad guy, the tattletaler, right? The person that says that, hey, someone on your team sucks, and not so, and not those words.
It becomes obvious without having to have the conversation.
It just harms the relationship. And so there's ways in which we operationalize that invitation process, just like I talked about, like assigning personas within the project experience, automating the way in which those personas are assigned on the customer side. So the champion doesn't necessarily have to engage us or their GuideCX project manager to, add someone to the project experience. That champion can just add their team based on what the skills that are required in order to execute on the work.
That's cool. So from a onboarding perspective for GuideCX, what's the onboarding process like? I mean, how long does it take to get in place? Like, how quickly can I make it operational and get start seeing success from using it?
Yeah, thank you. I don't mean this to be a commercial, but this is like me talking about one of my daughters. This is my 5th kid. So please stop me if it's becoming too salesy. We drink our own champagne. We use GuideCX to onboard our own product. And our average time to implement for customers that have less than 100 employees is 14 days. For customers that have over 100 employees, it's like 47 days. And the difference being is we have on the latter side, if you have over 100, we dedicate a specific resource to integration needs. So we have an integration project manager. And then we dedicate another specific resource to training needs in addition to our LMS, our learning management system. And then you have your project manager. So we kind of enable through we call our integration builder. We enable you to connect GuideCX seamlessly up to your whole tech stack. So lots of challenges that occur is you might have a customer that doesn't pay their invoice on time. Well, with GuideCX, you're able to see the correlation between unpaid invoices and the project health of a customer, and you can pull in the intact data set from your accounting system into our report builder in addition to the GuideCX data set, and then correlate those 2 data points. Same thing. A lot of our bigger customers use CS platforms like GangSite. At their customer conference, I shared an analogy about, like, a baby comes out of the womb with an APGARD score. My 3rd baby came out of the womb not breathing, and she got kind of sent to the NICU. And She ultimately is a thriving 8-year-old little girl. But I found it interesting that, the hospital scores that baby within a minute once they come out of the womb based on how their appearance, their grimace, how they look. And that then defines the short-term, the care of that baby such that they can give that baby the greatest chance to survive. But when you look at companies that are implementing products and services, lots of times they just implement them and then push them out to the general population, right? And we wonder why a lot of churn. Well, with customer success platforms, we have an onboarding health score that can define kind of a customer success plan. And so you can know who to send to the NICU and who not to.
I like that. I like that analogy too, the EPGAR score. So Peter, you've already shared a couple I find interesting stats. The 72% of updates getting done after work from the client side, 5 or more resources being successful onboarding. So I guess I should have thought about this before, but you're sitting on so much onboarding data, like you're a trove of onboarding data. I'm curious, what other kind of insights have you guys seen as you look across this wealth of data in terms of how companies are doing onboarding that may be interesting for our audience, or things that maybe stuck out to you as you saw it?
Yeah. So we did a whole big data study on this. So there's a whole document. You can feel free to reach out to me. Happy to send it along. With I don't want to get too long-winded here, but there's a couple of other interesting points from this study. One is we have like the Amazon package tracker view, right? So it's a login-less portal where someone can go on and see kind of where they're at in a process. It answers those 3 questions I spoke about earlier about when am I going to get it, who's responsible for doing things, and then what did I buy? So it's kind of a customer-facing portal. It's white labeled to your brand that does that. So on average, a participant of a project looks at that portal 3.7 times a week. So and it's not emailed to them. There is a automation where you can choose how often you want a link to that portal sent to them. But regardless of what the cadence is of that email, customers want to know where they're at. And if you don't give them a view, it doesn't have to be through GuideCX, but if you don't communicate progress to them in an automated fashion, they're going to be left with a question that's unanswered. And what's the consequence to not answering that question? Maybe they become apathetic. Maybe you lose momentum. And so if you provide a customer-facing view, I guess the learning is they do look at it. They're conditioned to look at it in their business to consumer life. And there's other studies about, like the number of meetings during implementation. We have case studies on our website. Oftentimes will be reduced by 40% if you get more transparent with your customers. Like you don't need to have meetings anymore. Your weekly check-ins are almost obliterated, and you start focusing more time on your proactive things that you can do with your customers rather than being so reactive. But yeah, happy to share that study with the community that you guys support.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, interesting. So actually another question here, this is kind of, I guess, on the fact that you get all this data, right? And it comes in. So as a company, I want the advantages of the data for me, right? But I'm not sure whether I want that data shared across with other companies. What do you do as far as protection, and how you decide whether it's part of information you can look at? The vast majority or across companies is that kind of information to share.
Yeah, I mean, this is a question that all companies are being faced with, especially with with AI becoming so mainstream. Like AI is an editor of data, and if it doesn't have data, you can't do anything with it. And so I guess the first thing is we are a respecter of your data. Our default position is any data we share in these big data studies is de-identifiable. We're SOC 2 compliant. We have securities and controls that are measured on a daily basis by third parties like Drata that hold us accountable to doing things in a professional fashion. But some of our customers, especially some of our big like Fortune 100 customers, say, "Oh no, we don't even want you to share that data," and we respect that. But most are okay about helping you learn. Like it kind of helps the whole ecosystem learn if you can aggregate data in a de-identifiable way and extract some value out of it so the community can get better. I think with the evolution of AI, I shared in my presentation at Pulse, it's like humanity has gone through kind of this industrial revolution of like the backhoe was invented, and now like where the backhoe does the work of 100 men digging shovels, right? And then the internet was created, and we started doing computations that like the human mind couldn't compute and as fast as a computer. And now we have AI, which is kind of like what I tell customers is it allows you to tell stories with the data. Like it understands your data before you understand it yourself. And it helps, and that in turn helps your people be more productive, helps you be better decision makers, and it helps you differentiate in a greater way. So anyways, that's the goal of using data so that you can start, the storytellers rule the world, and the best communicators are the ones that advance the most. That's how I see this evolving ourselves in our own workplace.
Yeah. And Peter, this may be a continuation of that, but I'll ask you to get your crystal ball out a little bit, right? As you're like, dealing with onboarding, what do you see as like in the next 5 years, like the onboarding trends, or where do you think onboarding's going in the future?
Yeah. So I think lots of people think everything's going to be automated. And I kick against that. Like I still believe we're dealing with humans, helping humans. AI is not going to replace humans, but humans that use AI will. Like people that use every tool at their leisure will be much more productive than people that don't. And AI is one of those superpower tools that you'll be able to use. So how do I think that's going to affect the future? It's going to help people be a lot better at their jobs. I think the best products in the world make a C player, a B player, an A player, and it helps you just be exponentially better. And that means for us, exponentially better at learning what your perfect implementation experience looks like. We already are, pulling in data from our own customers. So like when you spin up a project, GuideCX will tell you and kind of highlight, hey, this is the task that is your problem child across the last 100 projects you did. Like this has a 90% chance likelihood to be delivered late. And if this is late, this is how it's going to affect your delivery date. And so that makes a C player an A player, right? Because now they can kind of foreshadow what risk there is to a project and meet that need sooner than they would otherwise. And they couldn't do that without data. Without data, not only just being data, but data telling the story. The AI kind of engaging itself. It's machine learning. I mean, AI is just another fancy term for machine learning.
Yeah, it's a cool thought process. You're effectively, one of the analogies I use is you're kind of building knowledge beyond what you have, but yet the organizational knowledge that you lose when you start losing experienced people in an organization, you're no longer going to have to lose that knowledge. Now we've seen all these projects, we've seen this work, and we know what happens if you don't follow these steps. And so now you can make the adjustments in your organization to keep growing that, and you don't lose that organizational knowledge, even if new people are coming in and you're losing old people, because it's built into the knowledge of the organization.
Yeah. It used to be that like you had to sit next to the top salesperson or the top onboarder in order to like extract all their like golden nuggets. I always felt like that's what we lost in the remote world, is like, it doesn't hurt the people that are, older in their career because a lot of that learning has happened, but it does hurt the guy right out of college that is trying to make a name for him or herself and doesn't get to sit next to the top salesperson or the top onboarder or the top implementer. With AI, it's like you're sitting next to that top performer every minute of every day. So yeah, I acknowledge that.
Yeah. All right, Peter, I think we've gotten to the hard part of our conversation. This is where I think Kevin's going to fire off. We have these 5 questions. Okay. Nothing to prep for, right? Just to learn a little bit more about you. Rapid fire. Okay. Kev, you got them ready to go here?
Sure. Start with the favorite book.
Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
Oh, nice.
Okay, cool. Favorite movie since we were talking earlier?
Gladiator.
Nice.
Russell Crowe is back in his prime.
Yeah. Gladiator's been on, like, I don't know what channel, AMC, one of those, like every time I turn it on, and I'm always for like a half hour. Like I see, like, there's a half hour right there. So I love it.
What we do in this life will echo in the eternities, right?
That's right.
A lot of lessons to be learned.
That's right.
What's your next bucket list item that you want to check off?
Oh, I about 7 years ago, I hiked Machu Picchu with my wife. We did that 5-day Inca trail. I want to take my daughters on that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think, last one, sport. What's your favorite sport and what do you like to do?
I was just telling my buddy this. I don't look at myself as someone that has a lot of hobbies. Like this is my hobby that has been for the last 7 years. I'm not a great golfer. I don't, I guess the one thing I love to do is just be with my family on the lake. If you were to ask me, what I'd want to spend a weekend doing, that would probably be the number one thing. But I'm not a croquet player, but I'm a good athlete. I can hold my own at anything.
Not a pickleball player?
I love pickleball, but last time I played pickleball, there was a kind of an 80-year-old gentleman on the other court that was reffing our game without being asked. He kept on telling me I was in the kitchen. And I know there's a lot of passionate players in that sport, and I really like it, but I haven't gotten into it.
Yeah, it's awesome. We're playing a lot of pickleball down here, Peter. So if you make it down to Atlanta, we got to get you involved. And again, we won't criticize your kitchen play or do any overt coaching. You'll be okay.
I'll hold you on with you. I won't be the reason we lose.
Peter, where can our audience find more about GuideCX, yourself, etc.?
Yeah, so I'm active on LinkedIn. Peter at GuideCX is my email. Yeah, one of the coolest things about this experience of building a company from scratch, and now fast forward to 7 years, is a lot of people have helped without expecting anything in return. Like I have more confidence in humanity after going through this experience than I had before. And so I want to be that person to anyone out there that needs help, even if it's unrelated to GuideCX. So please, reach out to me.
That's awesome. Well, Peter, thanks so much for joining the show, sharing, more about our audience who may not have known a lot about GuideCX and just, what you're seeing in terms of customer onboarding data, et cetera. I know it's fascinating for me and I'm sure our audience as well. So
Thanks,
with that, you're welcome. That's a wrap for this episode of the Customer Success Playbook podcast. Follow us on LinkedIn at Roman Trebon, at Kevin Metzger. We have our own Customer Success Playbook LinkedIn page as well. So if you want to see the latest in Atlanta pickleball action, come and check it out. We have there, and we'll have tidbits and videos of our interview with Peter on there as well. So thanks for listening. And Kevin,
keep on playing.
You guys, thanks.
So tune